Hey guys, LPGWV Kevin here with Heather. We've had some exciting news this past week, so we wanted to talk to you about the developments that have happened in Pokemon Go. Ready?
Ready.
So, first thing, I was hit my 7-day rewards. This is my last research reward for the month until it changes. So I was pleased to be able to get all 4 of them next month. I think I've got everything scheduled so that I can actually end up with 5.
Suicune.
Suicune for the reward, which will be the new Pokemon, who's available through research.
So Suicune matching with the other legendary doggos. We now have a water type, so if you have scheduled it in such a way that in the first couple days of October, the first 3 days of October, you cash in your 7-day streak, then it is possible for you to get 5?
5, just like
5
August.
total. So in that, you have much better opportunities to get a potentially high IV Suicune. But that's not our only news for now. We see this week has been very heavy in terms of news for Pokemon Go. No spoiler alerts, but a certain Nut Ditto is kind of a big deal right now.
So if you logged in on Monday, I think that was when the announcement dropped, there were 2 pieces of information. One you will have seen in the Pokemon Go app, and then a video that immediately followed up with that post.
Which was linked in the Pokemon Go news app. And that was a video, it was super cute, between Professor Oak and Professor Willow. Professor Oak, of course, being a little bit scatterbrained, and Professor Willow attempting to let Professor Oak know of this new unidentified Pokemon. Now, of course, Professor Oak has lots of information and knows that that is somewhere in some ancient text. So we now have a little bit of a clue as to what may be ahead. Bulbapedia has reported already, or at least they have attempted to put together a biography of this new figure, Meltan, supposedly.
So if you remember at the end of Chikorita Community Day, immediately following the close, there were the little, what people were calling Nut Ditto or Nutto, all over the place. And basically every Pokemon spawn you came across was replaced with this very small creature that looks like a bolt on top, and what people were describing as a Ditto body beneath with a little red wire tail.
There it is.
So we now know that this is a mythical Pokemon called Meltan, and that it's less a Ditto body and more like maybe some melted metal
Mercury,
of some sort.
I believe.
So that may give us a clue into the types for the Pokemon when it enters the game. But what's really exciting is that this is an unprecedented thing in Pokemon Go, where it's a new Pokemon that does not have a previous ancestor in any of the console or handheld games. So the release actually occurred in Pokemon Go, and that's pretty exciting.
There have been some hintings across different media outlets that this may be one of the newer Pokemon for Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee. I'm curious to see what the crossover is for the Let's Go and just Pokemon Go. I'm curious to see whether it's going to be a special research that happens on Go and then is transported into Eevee Pikachu, or whether it's something that you find on Let's Go Eevee Pikachu and then you have to find it out in the wild. There are a lot of potential options, but I do think it's curious that they're starting the advertising for it now. I mean, of course, that makes sense for advertising for a new game that's coming out in November, but it is curious nonetheless.
Is that only going to be released on the Switch, or is that...
I know Switch primarily, but I think there have been other... I'm not sure, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
What will be interesting is that Pokemon Go and Let's Go Eevee Pikachu will be able to interact in some way. You'll be able to trade some Pokemon. So in the video, if you haven't seen it yet, you probably should go check it out.
It's very short. It's about 2 minutes.
It's like 2.5 minutes. Definitely quick to do. There's a point where Professor Willow is getting ready to send Professor Oak this Ditto that he has, and Oak mentions he's going to definitely investigate the Ditto, which I think is interesting, and I'm hoping that's a teaser that something interesting is going to happen with the Dittos that we've caught for that event. And I don't know It might be interesting if you traded it back to Let's Go Eevee or Pikachu through the Switch if something happens to it, or maybe it'll happen to it in Pokemon Go. That's just total speculation, but I think it would be really a neat way to do that, to reward people who were playing at that time and may have acquired 20 or 30 of those little guys.
Mm-hmm. I do think it will be fun to see what exactly happens with all of this. I think right now I just want more information. I just want to know how to find Meltan. I want to know if it's going to be something that is based in real life Pogo application, or whether it's a game based on the Switch. Again, we have no new information other than that in terms of Meltan. What we do know is that he's some kind of steel type. So the bottom being made of mercury, and his attack coming somehow through the little peephole, the pinhole of his eye or her eye. But other than that, we've got nothing.
So the game footage that's running in the background, this was the first gym battle where I got to try out my newly evolved Charizard, which I brought back from our Scotland trip, and it's a 98% IV Charizard, so I was pleased to take that guy out. We were going around town a little bit in between these news bouts. So this first one happened Monday, and then the other one happened, that just dropped today, and we'll talk about that at the end of the video, the new stuff for Community Day. So we were just going around town and tearing down some gyms to try to get some coins. If you're a person who doesn't try to plunk a whole lot of money into the game, the way that you can acquire coins to purchase things like incubators, which you use to hatch eggs, are by putting Pokemon in gyms and keeping them there for a period of time. And you can get up to 50 coins a day, which you can use in the shop and purchase things that you need for the game without spending actual currency.
Now, we were focusing on particular gyms. So if you are a player that is sort of looking for the newest and latest, we were attempting to find some of the X-rayed location gyms. Now, this one here is not an X-rayed location, but we were still scouting about for coins and such. So as of late, we have news that Deoxys is going to be the new X-rayed Pokemon, replacing Mewtwo, now Mewtwo in the public. So it would behoove many people to then do some more things in X-rayed gyms, have some higher presence there. So we were rolling around town trying to beat up those gyms and do some raids there.
But not everything you do at an X-rayed gym increases your chance for receiving an invite, right? It's just a subset of the actions there.
It's true. So the raiding at particular gyms, the X-rayed gyms, is going to be your highest chance. That is your active presence there doing raids, whether it's a 1-level raid or whether it's a 5-tier raid. That is your best opportunity. Now, that being said, if you look at the spread of who gets X-rayed invites, or at least who did for Mewtwo, there was sort of a split across the different badge levels for gyms. So there is a possibility that if you got an X-rayed and you had either no badge or just the lowest bronze level, if you got a higher badge level, it's possible that there may be another invite for you. But it's all sort of speculation. I don't know all of the details as to how Niantic chooses who gets X-rayed passes, but raiding there is definitely the strongest link.
I remember back in July I saw a couple of pie charts that someone had put together, and I don't know if they'd done a poll or not for people who'd attended X-raids. And it was people who had gold, silver, and bronze medals at that X-raid gym. And at the time, if I remember correctly, it was like 60 or 70% of the people who received an X-rayed invite to that gym only had a bronze level. So it looked like Niantic was really trying their best to spread that around, and it wasn't basically if you happened to live near one or travel to one to and from work to overly privilege people with access to those gyms. And I think the first X-rayed invite we got, I had only been to that gym fewer than 5 times. I think it wasn't a great number. So
I do think it's curious though. We got a second X-rayed invite for the Mewtwo opportunity, but we still had the same bronze badge for the gym, It's simply that we had raided there another time or a couple more times, leading one to conclude that it's mostly raid based in terms of your X invites. But I don't know. Maybe they look at gym presence, maybe they look at some other details to determine who gets that primarily. But the exciting thing about Deoxys now is that you get to invite a friend, right? So if you take off work or if you go on your lunch break or whatever your choice, it is possible for you or somebody you know and love to bring you along on that raid, which is exciting.
So we talked about, we actually each received 2 X-raid invites, but could only go to 1 because of scheduling. And we were like, man, it's a bummer that these are going to get wasted. It would be nice if we could transfer them to a friend or in some way make sure they get used. At least this is a step in the right direction where even if you can't use it, you can't transfer it, you can at least bring a friend. Now, as far as I know, the actual mechanics of how that works hasn't been announced. I imagine it's going to have to be, you're going to have to queue them up in the app somehow as the person you're inviting. Mm-hmm. But as far as I know, there's been no discussion about the actual mechanics or logistics of how those invites work.
They have not rolled out anything. My current guess is that it would be somehow linked to your friends list, that somebody with a particular tier, I don't know what, would be able to access that, or you could go to your items and click and submit that to somebody, possibly in the form of a gift. I don't know. But I am interested to see what comes up with the next update. But we also don't have a timeline as to when those X-ray badges are going to be passed out.
We don't even know when Deoxys is actually going to land in the X-rays. Like that, right. That's an open question as well.
So, long story short, it would make more sense to continue to raid in those locations until we hear more details, if you want to be in the first slew of people to get invites.
I would kind of suspect also, since there is the invite category, for them to change how they issue those invites. It will be less important to reward medium tier players because they still might be able to go to get invited. So, like for instance, the 2 of us raid together a lot. It would be entirely reasonable for Niantic and the Pokemon Company to only issue us effectively 1 invite, 1 and a guest, and then to spread that around a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see if who gets those invites changes. So as we're going through the gyms here that you see, I'm still hunting for high IV Pidgeys. Sadly, the Pidgey spawns have been pretty thin on the ground the past few weeks. I think since we're still in that rewards period and we're seeing lots and lots of the lower count Gen 1 Pokemons, I mean, the starter Pokemons are practically everywhere. Like, I don't think a day goes by that I don't catch a Charmander, a Bulbasaur, and a Squirtle. They're everywhere. But there's a lot of stuff that isn't present, and for whatever reason, Pidgeys are one of them. So my IV hunting is going slowly. Mm-hmm. Are there any special things you're looking for during this period? I know that I've been stocking up on Magikarp candies so that when I finally find that shiny Magikarp, I can get that red Gyarados.
Yes. So today's my birthday. Woohoo! And I happened to find a shiny Magikarp this morning, so I am certainly stocking up on Magikarp candies. This guy is insanely jealous because that's one of 2 shiny Pokemon that he absolutely wants desperately. Now, granted, I did offer it to him, but he would not take it.
I've already agreed for a trade with someone else for a Pokemon we picked up while we were in Europe, so I don't want to have to back out of that other trade. And it would be just totally ridiculous to have 2.
Either way, I am stocking up on Magikarp. This seems to be a common theme for me. I evolved a Magikarp shortly before the 400 Magikarp required for Mew. And then I evolved a Magikarp a couple days ago, probably 3 or 4 days ago. And now here we are, a shiny that I would love to evolve. But I am stocking up on other things as well. So I'm looking primarily for evolution fodder, but curiously enough, or coincidentally enough, whichever, Niantic if you're listening, we have seen a disappearance of evolution fodder. So things like Rattata, things like Venonat, Pidgeys, what else? Paris?
Kangaskhan. Sorry, I hate to interrupt. So if you're doing the 7K egg thing, region exclusives that you might not otherwise be able to get like Mr. Mime, Kangaskhan, Farfetch'd, are available.
Taurus, if you're international.
It's pretty much a bummer to be here in North America and hatch a Taurus, but because they're pretty common. But I'm on my third Kangaskhan now, and I brought some Farfetch'd back with me from Scotland, but I think I've hatched 2 others since we were here. But it's really nice to be able to grab that Kangaskhan because the likelihood of me getting to the Pacific Asia region is practically non-existent. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I am interested to see how we are going to acquire the Gen 2 and Gen 3 regional exclusives. Things like Relicanth, Tropius, what are some of the other ones? The Volbeat, is it Mangoose? No, not Mangoose. Zangoose. Yeah. Those sorts of things are also regional exclusives. Now, luckily we did, with the Zangoose, see a flipping of regions for a day or two. I forget what it was. But Tropius and Relicanth are still on my missing dex entries. So I have very few left. I think I might be in single digits other than the ones they haven't released yet. But I am awaiting that with bated breath.
So one of the things the Ultra Rewards weekend has done, which must be intentional, is to aid players who are stuck at some spot to move on in the game. Getting the Magikarp candies for the Mew Quest was a grind, even just 2 months ago. Now, however, we know someone who plays not too seriously, but she was able to evolve a Magikarp pretty much just in this period, and the candies are so prevalent that she did it outside of the Mew Quest. So like that kind of, it's like, oh no, you're not going to be able to do it. But that's not true because those things are everywhere as well. I'm catching, 10 a day probably. So
in the last 3 days, I've been able to acquire at least 200 Magikarp candies, of course using pin apps, but that is to illustrate how short it takes for these evolutions. Now, of course, I've got my little tinfoil hat on for Niantic somewhere up there. But it is still a nice perk.
Yeah, the fact that they're helping all of players who may not have been able to reach those goals through basically happenstance luck and not being the favorite of the pseudo-random number generator gods is great, but there is that worry that, well, if these things are so prevalent now, is that to lay away candies for a lean period that's coming? And I think a lot of people are concerned about that.
There is, I think, a savviness for Niantic here. Some of the Pokemon Go players who bailed because of app glitches or app issues in the first couple months missed out on all of those Gen 1 things and missed out on Gen 2 and 3, but now coming into it, they are able, again, if they are starting it back up, to go into those and to re-access some of the Gen 1 stuff and fill out their Pokedex that maybe they left haphazardly before. So even you restarted playing, and this is an opportunity for you to fill out your decks.
Yeah.
That otherwise it's totally rare and uncommon for that to happen.
Yeah, so it's definitely been an interesting event. It still goes through the end of October, so it's quite a long one. And this is just the end of that period of Niantic doing lots and lots of things, to attract old players back and new players in. We talked about the video earlier with Professor Oak and Professor Willow. That video already has 2.2 million views since it was released on Monday, and it's currently number 5 trending on YouTube. So the difference between Pokemon Go, people are still playing that game, to trending number 5 on YouTube in really 4 short months is a big deal.
Yeah.
So I think Niantic's, I don't know if we call it a gamble, but I think Niantic's project here has definitely paid off.
Absolutely. If you look at revenue for the last couple months, I think it's something like 8 million, or maybe even more than that, 8 billion.
I think the thing I saw was $2 billion in revenue over the past 81 weeks.
Yeah.
So, that's a year and a half, basically, so 18 months. So yeah, $2 billion in revenue is nothing to sniff at. And that's through in-app purchases, because the game itself is free to play. So People were talking about when the 7K egg thing happened. Well, this is just so Niantic can sell more incubators, and then that very well may be the case. But as we can see with those financial earnings reports, that it's not like they're hurting.
No, absolutely not. But it is a great setup for November when we see the Switch game come out. So it is very high incentive. We saw this happen in July when there was a big hubbub the first summer that it came out about selling the game and selling pieces, and now we're having another sort of hot spot of important events happening as we lead up to the release of this game. So it's not coincidental, it's just outright smart.
And savvy companies are walking the line carefully between pay to play, pay to win, and other methods of funding the game. So if anyone, it used to be, I mean, if you played a game 10 years ago, you downloaded the game and that was it, and maybe there was a sequel and an expansion pack after you'd played for 30 or 40 hours. These days, the kind of jaded conception is that you purchase the game and then you have to buy this level and that level and this level, and they're shipping games that are 5% complete and you have to purchase the other 95. But I think Niantic and the Pokemon Company have steered away from that artfully, and I think it's totally reasonable for them to make money for their work, and I think they're doing a good job about balancing that.
Now, what just prompted my attention was that Metang in the gym, Metang, I'm not sure the pronunciation. Anyway, the Community Day that's coming up in October will feature our hard-to-find Beldum. So that's kind of exciting for October because we've seen other Community Days, not to mention any but September, which were not terribly helpful. I mean, it's exciting to get Frenzy Plant, but to have a Community Day that so many people are looking forward to filling out either their decks, their Pokedex, or just getting a new Steel type, Psychic type, potential battle-ready Pokemon is super exciting.
Yeah, I don't currently have a Metagross, so I'm looking forward to Community Day. Hopefully we'll be able to squirrel away enough candies. And what was interesting, I think we'll actually see the announcement here in just a few minutes. But one of the things that was announced is that for an hour after the event ends, any evolutions will have the special move of the day.
Which they have not announced yet.
What special move is?
Yes, they have not announced any of those details. Simply that there's going to be a much higher, a much lower rate for hatching eggs.
Oh, it's a 4x multiplier, right? So it's way better even than a super incubator.
Yeah, so there's that. And we also will see 3 hour long, I think it was, let's see, lures will last 3 hours during the event. So that's great for some people who are either inaccessible or who want to hang out by coffee shops and just pull all the Beldum.
But every community we've been to in that little strip that we tend to walk, every single one of those stops is lured for the event. And so that coupled with incense is definitely going to do you well.
Mm-hmm. But knowing that this Pokemon Beldum takes 100 to evolve to a Metagross, we do see on the announcement that it says evolve Metang up to 1 hour after the event to obtain Metagross that knows this special move. So Niantic is giving us extra time to hold on to all those candies to figure whether or not we're going to be able to evolve those, because they have either planned or it coincidentally has happened that Beldum is extremely rare.
In previous community days, we've basically quit playing the last 15 minutes to scroll through quickly, find the high IV Pokemon that we like, and get those evolutions in. So that's kind of what we've done on the side. It's nice to have that kind of lag period afterwards for which that will still be. If you've done a community day, when it ends, all of those Pokemon just disappear, and if you're
creepy.
It's super creepy. If you're at a place where there's a bunch of them, and so you're getting there trying to do your last few shiny checks, and then all of a sudden you're just basically in an empty digital field, and
Pokemon Go apocalypse.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy. It's like it's almost like a Marvel film.
Yeah.
Mr. Stark. I don't want to go.
Spoilers.
Oh yeah, whoops. We mentioned which film. All right, so yeah, so the community day for Meltan and Metagross, I'm definitely looking forward to that. I don't have the Metagross, like I said, so I'm really looking forward to clearing that out.
My Metagross, let me just scroll through. I think it's something like 600 CP. It was totally one of those last minute things where you know that you have enough candy and you can't really resist it long enough to actually get one that's worth your evolution. Yeah, so my Metagross, which is nicknamed Bender from Futurama, is 84 IV, but its CP is 694, and I only have one Beldum candy. So it will be hopefully a really good time to play catch up.
Yeah, so when I evolved the Charizard that we talked about at the beginning of the video, I dumped like 70,000 Stardust into that, and all at least 40, maybe 70 Charmander candies, because it was high IV. It was 98% IVs. I brought it back from Scotland. I like that one, but it was low CP. It was something like 400 CP after it was a Charizard. So the balance is sometimes you'll find these high CP Pokemons with crap IVs, and then you'll find that really high IV ones, which mean that their ending ability will be higher. You catch them and they're like 33 CP, and so you really have to plunk down a chunk of Stardust, which is the rarest commodity in the game, effectively.
Now, that is to say, in your thinking about powering up and in evolving, there is some play between whether you choose to power it up or whether you choose to leave it just for IV's sake. In that regard, there are spreadsheets far and wide talking about the level of the Pokemon and at what point it becomes useless to power it up. I would definitely suggest taking a look at that so you don't waste millions and millions of Stardust when you could be trading long distances or legendary Pokemon.
So again, here we have the community announcement. So if you can reverse that to bring it back up. I'm looking forward to Community Day. We had a really good time. Hopefully we'll see some of the same people next month. And those were the two big news things for this week. So we have Nutto becomes Meltan, and we have the next Community Day to be Metagross. I mean, it's not really Metagross, but that's what I'm looking for.
It's kind of Metagross.
It's kind of Metagross.
So lots of exciting events, lots of stuff coming up. So keep playing.
Yep. So it's a great time to be into Pokemon Go. Thanks for watching. It's going to be a short stream tonight. We just wanted to talk about these two big breaking news pieces, and we'll see you guys in a couple days. Again, this is LPGWV Kevin and Heather. Feel free to follow us on this channel and also on our main channel, twitch.tv/LPGWV. We're in the middle of Beat 'em Up month. If you tuned in yesterday, we did a series of games. We had 4 people playing, and it was a good time. So we'll be continuing to stream on that channel. So tune in, and thanks for following. Thanks, guys.